SPL, Week 3. Arctic, that's me. Me is also a song by Taylor Swift. And speaking of songs by Taylor Swift, here we have Smogon, nicknamed The Lakes. The Lakes manages to be the least streamed track on the album Folklore, despite being indisputably the best track on Folklore. And to supplement this video, I have my tier list of Taylor Swift albums. And while I would go in depth, this is a Pokemon video, not a T-Swizzle video. However, I will briefly give my insights into the most underrated track on every single album. Folklore, The Lakes, 1989, New Romantics. That might be my favorite Taylor Swift song, if not The Lakes. There's something else. What's the other song? I don't know. It's not relevant to the most underrated. I don't know what is underrated on Red. I'm gonna give it a pass. Evermore. Long Story Short is my favorite track on the album. I don't know the general consensus surrounding it. On Lover, Cornelia Street was once my favorite song of all time. It isn't anymore, but I suppose that because I can't think of another song on it that I really like and isn't very popular. It's also worth mentioning that I'd put Evermore in A tier, but I think the reverse triangle this forms is far, far better. Reputation. I think Getaway Car is the best song on it, but I don't think that's underrated. New Year's Day is pretty good. I'd imagine that's an underrated track. Midnights. The Great War is the best song, I think, on it. Or Labyrinth. I really like Labyrinth, actually. Fearless. Again, I don't think this album has really any super underrated songs that I also find to be super good, which is why it's in B tier. Yeah, I don't know. And then Speak Now, or Not Speak Now. The song's okay, but it isn't my cup of tea. Enchanted and Haunted are really good. I'd imagine they're more popular. I think Long Live is probably the most underrated track on the album. But again, I really have no idea what people's favorite tracks on these albums are. And I could not name half of the songs on debut. However, my favorite song on it is probably My Tears Ricochet. So, onto the team. Smogon, The Lakes. I thought that Smogon was really good into Altina, and I like the set, especially with Celebi support. This coverage only really has to worry about opposing Smogon and really Roar Smogon, and you can deal with that through spikes damage, potentially exploding on it, whatnot, weakening it so that Doug Trio picks it off, just attacking them with Celebi. And everything else is pretty much destroyed by Smogon. Smogon is really underrated, just like the song that is named after. Saying Smogon is underrated when it's extremely popular might be a bit much, but God, Smogon is so good. What even beats it? There's no counter to Smogon in this metagame. There's not one counter. Tail Whip Blissey is the closest you will get. And here is a cleric to support Smogon, just support the team in general. Could also be Wish, as I don't necessarily need a cleric, but it works well with Restall. I could run Refresh with Wish, but Rest is generally better than Refresh. Skarmory is Fizdef, as this team isn't the biggest fan of matching up into Arrow. While it does have Claydol to resist Rock, Celebi can take one, Blissey can take one, fire back. So the Fizdef on Skarmory really helps. You also have Suicune. It's not an unplayable matchup at all. It's fairly simple, but it can get annoying, and the extra bulk on it really, really does help. Although it does make it harder to get up spikes. Claydol, as mentioned, is, it's there for Arrow, but also to spin. If I were to use this again, I think I would use Shadow Ball over Psychic, although that's debatable. Psychic is better against Will-O-Wisp, but you need Shadow Ball to beat Superman's that carry Mischievous. Sunny Day is great for weather clearing for Suicune and whatnot, and you don't really need another move. It's overall the best set you could run in Dugtrio here, I'd imagine. You could also run Rest on it, as that would help you when Skarmory's phasing you around. And last month, Celebi. Celebi is really great here. Usually you'll see a Jirachi or Gengar. However, Celebi has an easier time recovering, has Natural Cure. It can... If it gets trapped by Dugtrio, then Dugtrio can trap Dugtrio. Overall, it's really nice when paired with Blissey, because it means that they're not going to break through you, through Explosion, through Dugtrio. It can Leech Seed Snorlax, it can Leech Seed Suicune. Very nice Pokemon overall. And this really stings even to Pokemon that resist it. Metagross also can get trapped, but it's not like it appreciates Leech Seed to begin with. And unless there's a Magneton, which Dugtrio is also cool for trapping Magneton, if necessary. But if there's no Magneton, then Skarmory can switch into Metagross really well with Fizdef. Unless, of course, it is mixed. And that is a big deal because even if it's not CB, if it Meteor Mashes and then gets a raise, then there's problems playing around Explosion, but this could turn Explosion to a potential roll. And overall, eating Explosion is really nice when there is no Ghost type, no secondary Steel, no other resist to it. Suicune versus Skarmory. Here I just attack into it to get whatever damage I can. I don't want to reveal Ice Beam. That Surf damage reveals to him that I am offensive. He does not know that I'm not modest. However, he does know that I have special attack investment. Here I go to Celebi, as it doesn't reveal Blissey, and by not revealing Blissey, I make it less obvious that my team is more defensive. Here I go Skarmory into it, and then I run from the Jirachi here. Because, due to my lack of Spadef, taking the hit would be dumb. Even if I didn't have it, dealing with a potential critical hit isn't worth it in a game that appears to be longer like this. And Celebi is my initial Jirachi answer due to Leech Seed. But Claydol cannot touch it with Earthquake, and Dugtrio, of course, does not want to come in. Blissey doesn't want to come in. And here I go back into my Skarmory, as it's the best against Blissey. I do not like spikes not showing. Let me see if that's fixed if I reset it. Good. Oopsie. So I get up a spike, they get up a spike. I believe I just spike again. And I see no reason why I wouldn't spike again here, as a roar is very possible. They send out Gengar, and here I go to Blissey, as Celebi would not appreciate taking the Ice Punch. And here I just fire off an Ice Beam, gives me a chance to freeze, hits everything. And I catch a Claydol, which is really nice, gets good damage, and here I get a lucky freeze. So from this position, I want to keep up pressure, as if this Blissey is not Aromatherapy, which is very unlikely with Toxic, then I'm in a very good position if this never thaws, and by playing passively, I'm giving it more chances to thaw. There's a chance, depending on his last, or even just in general, that I have trouble breaking through his team if spikes are not up. And this clay doll, especially if it's refresh, I'm not sure if it is or not. This clay doll is going to provide a big issue in the way of winning the game. So I want to approach this game more offensively to give it less turns to thaw. Here I switch out. So I just said that I do not want to play this game passively. However, I expected a switch to Blissey, and in the game I was irrationally scared of this Blissey having aromatherapy. So I wanted to come out on top and get my advantage spinning so I could keep up offensive pressure. So if the Blissey clicked aromatherapy, that he would then not be able to rapid spin. But I think that is not the best way of approaching it. However, even though that was my thought process, and maybe that was not the most solid, I think that came from this being my third SPL game. I wasn't nervous, but I wanted to be risk adverse. But overall, this move is fine, as it's unlikely that he stays in, as another Ice Beam would potentially ruin him if he doesn't thaw. The Ice Beam's doing good damage, and his Clay Doll will have opportunities to double in for Leftovers recovery, comment on my Clay Doll, and heal up and look for thaws more safely. And he knows how important his Clay Doll is, so he's got to switch out of there. And what better Pokemon to switch out of there to than Blissey? Or even if he goes into Skarmory, although he does have 3 spikes anyways, I can still then rapid spin. So this move is still logical. However, what I believe was my thought process at the time was not the best. Here they go, Gengar. I considered predicting that, but I decided that looking at this position, I'm in a very, very good position if this does not thaw. I'm ahead. And if he is aromatherapy, then I want to hit the nail on the head. I don't think that's a... Pull the cat by its boots. I don't think that's a saying either. Something about boots. Pull the boots by the strap. I have no idea. But... Or that's not necessarily what I was doing because I was playing safe. But the idea is, if he stays in, I want to get that rapid spin. I don't want to risk an Ice Beam crit. If he clicks Toxic, that's annoying. If he aromatherapies, I just want to spin. I just want to get off the rapid spin no matter what. And if he switches to Gengar, it's not a big deal as I can just Psychic afterwards. Aggression in a position like this is needless, as it doesn't really gain me anything. As here I switch, that's Psychic does a lot. Either way, even if it did 56%, I should still get out of there, as risking a Destiny Bond when removing spikes is so important is not worth it. Same with Explosion, and looking at his team, that does seem most likely. Especially given how the Gengar took so much. So I do get out of there to Celebi as he Destiny Bonds. Given how important the spinning is, I do not mind losing Celebi, as it will not be needed to beat anything. However, it could come in handy against Rachi, or maybe even a potential Suicune last. Although, I believe Suicune is not ran as a last here. Suicune would be over the Gengar or the Jirachi. What is the last most commonly here? Perhaps it is Suicune. I can't remember at this time. Oh, Dugtrio. Yes, Dugtrio. Yes. Okay. Cure Leech Seed. It keeps up pressure. I'm threatening HP Grass. 3 spikes are not ideal. So here I double the Clay Doll and thinking they will stay in, I click Rapid Spin. As they Drill Peck, they bring me down a bit. And here the best move is to switch out, as staying in does not gain me anything. So here I switch to my Blissey, which is able to cure the burn. And I'm threatening it with T-Bolt. I can go back out to Claydol. I can recover. I do go back out to Claydol, as here I can click Rapid Spin. However, he goes into Gengar. So here in this position, if he attacks Will-O-Wisps, whatnot, and I Psychic, it's horrible for him. If I switch out, first of all, there's a good chance that he's Explosion Thunderbolt, and he doesn't even have Ice Punch to hit the Celebi. Explosion Thunderbolt, Taunt Thunderbolt, or Taunt Ice Punch. Odds are he cannot just break through my Blissey and Celebi with this Gengar by any means, even somewhat effectively. And if he stays in, unless he crits or freezes, I really don't lose much, and I do have Aromatherapy for a freeze. So here's Metaground is Claydol. What going Claydol here does is it gains him Leftovers recovery. If I switch to Blissey, I have to Soft Boiled likely, and he can stay in and Rapid Spin, or switch out to play it even safer, perhaps go out into Gengar, looking to get Leftovers recovery there, while not risking the Claydol. So by going Claydol here, he's able to recover Leftovers, while I, switching and put on the back foot. Or even if I'm ahead with Celebi, he can still deal with that as well as he could in a later place in time. He has a Skarmory. So thinking that his best move is Claydol, I click Rapid Spin, also knowing that it's not very risky. And this clears the spikes for me to play even more offensively, as there's nothing pressuring my offensive threats, forcing my Suicune to rest and whatnot. So here I get up a Leech Seed and I Psychic the Skarmory as they click spikes. I believe I Psychic again, although no. This is the turn I go Dugtrio. I was thinking, do I Psychic again, then do I go Dugtrio? I did remember that I made this move. So the idea here is he wants Skarmory healthy to deal with, I mean, this Suicune to an extent, especially because it could be Rest Talk, but even to deal with Celebi and staying in, taking a Psychic, Drill Pecking, what does that really accomplish? Clicking Spikes, I mean, that trade is better for me. Clicking Roar, I mean, for what? Again, he's just taking more Leftovers recovery, and he doesn't have a great Celebi switch in. Jirachi potentially eats a Dugtrio move. Dugtrio hit, I would have to calc that. If it does, perhaps I switch out. However, Blissey would not, and Blissey's the most likely switch in here, as it can just simply heal up on the Celebi, go for Ice Beams, play the game slowly, and look for a freeze and a free switch out. Maybe PP Stall. It has Toxic to force me out and whatnot. So instead of playing this game passively, as the longer the game takes, the more chances for Claydol to thaw, I decided not only would this be very good for me to make progress, not only does this always KO, but even if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. The worst Skarmory could do is Drill Peck, which could get really annoying, although I do recover from Leech Seed. However, I will be taking Spikes, but again, him clicking Drill Peck doesn't really help him much, so I didn't think it was very likely. However, maybe perhaps his Blissey was Wish, which seems very unlikely on a team like this. You want Ice Beam for Salamence and Dugtrio. So this move, again, this game I took, I made a lot of mid-grounds, moves that got me the advantage while not really risking much. Here I switch Blissey into Gengar. I'm thinking Celebi will be more valuable, as it will be an interim check to any Pokemon that could be the last, other than something like Moltres, which I have a Suicune to. And I have a Dugtrio as well to support in that fight. And furthermore, Celebi is better against Jirachi thanks to Leech Seed. I mean, a random Snorlax that's better against... I'm not expecting these Pokemon. However, it's worth playing around when I'm not really risking anything by doing so. And if I go Celebi, I'm also risking Ice Punch crits, which is more important than the other things I said, because that's a way that he could genuinely get back in the game. While this is nice and safe, no risk, unless he has Focus Punch for no reason. Or not no reason, but I mean no reason, I guess. But even then, he would need another move to supplement it. So I Ice Beam, then T-Bolt. If he debonds, so what? And he tried to get back in the game. Clicks Will-O-Wisp, tried to put pressure. Here I go Celebi, as Claydol does not have Earthquake. Dugtrio does not want to switch in. Nothing really wants to take this. While Celebi's risking the least. If he freezes, I can switch out. Although, perhaps if he freezes, then I'd rather switch out to Genoa. I'm not quite sure, but Celebi loses this. It's fine. I still do have Claydol boom into Dugtrio. Skarmory could force a Roar or force Dugtrio to heal. I have many ways to play around this, but this is the best way to immediately tackle it. Gets a crit, but not a freeze that he would need, and I can Leech Seed here, as recovering just gives him more chance to fish for free. I'm more than happy with the Leech Seed. And it also covers Claydol, and here at HP Grass, I believe I just Leech Seed again. Keep getting damage on Skarmory. If it misses, so what? He just recovers more. However, it's in my best interest to go on the offensive. And Psychic would not be doing much damage considering Leftover's recovery. I believe here I recover again. No, I just Psychic. I would die to a critical hit Drill Peck, but that's not the biggest deal. Here I Psychic again, I believe. Hidden Power Grass. I think the idea behind this move was that if there is a Dugtrio in the back, I do not want to necessarily KO the Skarmory. I want to get damage on it and then switch into it with another Pokemon that will not risk getting HP bugged. Here they switch to Drachia. I just click a safe Leech Seed. It covers everything. They Ice Punch, trying to catch a choke into Dugtrio, trying to freeze Claydol. As here I go to Suicune, as it feels the least risky. It's fine against Ice Punch, and here I can Calm Mind up. The only thing coming my way between this and the game at this point is extreme luck. And there they Calm Mind, I Surf, and they forfeit. So, I believe I played well. However, the freeze on Claydol did extremely limit their ability to play the game for themselves. Again, I do think this is a good example of a game where mid-grounds really shine, as I did make a lot of progress, risking very little. Also, I did not mention this, but my Suicune is Calm, which is really cool. I believe it avoids the 3-hit KO from Blissey outside of Sand, or maybe in Sand, from Modest Thunderbolt. And it also helps against Fire types. Remember to stream Folklore on Spotify. And I will see you in the next one. Or maybe not.